Hey everybody, welcome back to Wednesday Words. I'm super excited about today because while we are still in the Sermon on the Mount, we're going to change sections and we're going to focus the next 4 weeks on prayer and actually more about who God is in prayer. And so I want to read a few verses and we're going to hit some attributes of who God is to us in prayer over the next 4 weeks. So let's take a look at, this is Matthew chapter 6. We're still in the Sermon on the Mount. And in verse 5, Jesus says, "Whenever you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, because they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by people. Truly, I tell you that they have their reward. But when you pray, go into your private room, shut your door, and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you." All right, so Jesus begins to open up this conversation about prayer, and he says, don't pray like the hypocrites. Now, a lot of times we think about hypocritical people as people who will say one thing, but then they'll go and they'll do another thing. And while that is true, while that is the definition of a hypocrite, Jesus is actually talking about, in this instance, hypocrites who are doing the right thing, but for the wrong reason. So the hypocrites were standing in the street corners, they were at the synagogue, they were timing where they would be at the time of prayer, and make sure that they were in these really prominent places so that they could be seen by other people. So they were doing what was right, but for the wrong reasons, and Jesus is calling that out because remember, in his Sermon on the Mount, he's talking about whole righteousness, both outward and inward, and he wants us to pray for the right reasons, not just to do the right thing, but with the right heart, and both matter. So Jesus says, don't pray like that. It's not that they were praying in front of people. That's not the problem. It's that they were praying in front of people so they could get the applause of men, so they could get that reward, and that was the problem. So Jesus says, instead, to combat that, go into a secret place, go into a quiet place, and I love this. He says, go into this private room, shut your door, and pray to your Father, not just who sees in secret, but your Father who is in secret. Very interesting terminology there. And I think Jesus is explaining to us something about the Father, that there are certain things about God, our Father, that we will only find out about him, that we will only know in those secret places of prayer. Our Father who is in secret. And here's what I want you to take away today. Jesus says numerous times in this passage, pray to your Father, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Pray to your Father, your Father. This is Jesus Christ revealing God the Father as a personal God. Now, we don't have a lot of time to go into all the reasons of what keeps us from praying, but I would imagine that a lot of you, and myself included, we give up on prayer because we are confused about who God is. And sometimes we give up on prayer because we believe that God is not personal. And maybe even some of you are viewing this today and you feel totally forgotten by God and you feel like God does not know you. And I'm here to tell you that Jesus Christ says, as a follower of him, God the Father is your Father. And so the very first attribute that we are going to discover over the next 4 weeks is this, that our God is personal. And that's the God that we pray to. So if in any way you have stopped praying because you believe that God is not acquainted with you or that he is not personal, I want you to hear the words of Jesus, that Jesus says, pray to your Father, and your Father will reward you in secret. So God is personal. We'll talk the next 3 weeks about some other attributes of God as it relates to prayer in the Sermon on the Mount. I hope to see you guys next week.